Okay, so we have the register page. What we'd like to be able to do is right after we register, we would like to navigate to the profile page, right? Notice that we were able to register, but we stayed here, right? Behind the scenes, we sent off a request to the network, right? So let's say I register as Bob. If we look at the network, right? If I spy on the network and I register as Bob, and I register, notice that the register was successful, and that indeed the server is responding with the object that was inserted, right? With the the ID that was created for this brand new object that was inserted. So we would like to be able to use this as a notification, say, it was successful, right? We can now navigate to the profile page, right? And presumably I would see the information about that particular user who just registered, okay? So let's first look at how is it that we would navigate to the profile page. That's easy. Let's go back to the controller, to the register controller. So here we have the register controller. So the fetch here is uses a technology called AJAX, right? Asynchronous JavaScript XML API for XML, right? That allows the browser to be able to send behind the scenes, generate HTTP requests, right? While you're still on the same HTML document. Okay, without leaving the page. Typically, before AJAX, the only way that the client could send anything to the server is by submitting a form. Okay, that was the only way to generate an HTTP post or generate an HTTP GET. Well, the GET could also be generated by the URL. When you change the URL, you generate a GET. Okay, but before AJAX, that was the only mechanism. Right. Now with AJAX, fetch is a thin layer on top of AJAX. Right, it's a nice abstraction over AJAX. AJAX is very verbose. It's fairly complex protocol. Fetch is a nice API that abstracts all that complication. So it's asynchronous, meaning that we can't just typically the way we think when we program, we think synchronously, meaning things happen from top to bottom, from left to right. Right? That's the way we learn how to program. Right? We once, for instance, I like to wait until this is done, and when this is done, then I can continue somehow, right? Perhaps fetch might return something like, yeah, it was successful. Now we can continue, right? But that's not the case. Fetch is asynchronous, meaning the browser, the JavaScript thread, does not block waiting for this AJAX call to complete. Instead, fetch uses the browser. The browser knows how to do multiple requests and can do multi-threading and all that, right? But the JavaScript itself cannot do that. So it delegates this network communication to the browser. Hey, browser, can you please do this post for me asynchronously? Spin up a new thread. Do this. I'm going to continue doing other things. Animating my cats or whatever. And once you're done, when the browser is done, notify me. Call me back. Let me know when it's done. When the server responded. So the API to do this, right, to register for a callback saying it's done, right? The API is that this fetch here returns what is called a promise object, an object, right, that allows you to enter into a contract, saying that, hey, at some time in the future, hopefully right away, very very close in the near future, I promise, right, to let you know what happened with this request of yours. Okay, you need to just tell me, how do I notify you, right? So this comes back as a promise. So we can say var, here's my promise. Okay, and then I can register. I can say promise to call me back at this function, right? Okay, and then it says success registration successful. Is that with 2 L's? Yeah. Is it 1 L or 2 L's? 1 L. Thank you. I'm sorry, English is not my first language. So we can declare a function here to handle that. We can say, okay, well, here's my function, registration successful, right? And then we can say Yay. So let's try that. Let's reload this. Let's reload this and let's register with some dummy data. We say register, comes back and says yay. Yeah. So now we have a callback saying, hey, here's a notification. We can also register for unsuccessful. This then function lets you provide two functions. The first one is a successful function, right? The success function. The second one, you can provide a registration failed. Right? So if the server instead responds with an exception, right, like throws an exception, okay, what you would get back is this function would be called. So if this fails, you can say function registration failed. Okay, alert. Oops. Okay. So you could handle both, right? If something went wrong on the server, you can throw an exception. Okay. All right. Oftentimes, the syntax for this is that instead of declaring a brand new variable here, okay, oftentimes, most commonly, what the syntax is to instead tie these together, put the then right after the call to the previous function. You see that? You do the fetch, and then you say dot then, right? And you provide the functions, for the registration functions. Make sense? Syntactically, they're exactly the same thing. But this is more common, that you put the then right after that. All right? And we'll see a little later why. Why is it that this became so popular? All right, so there we go. So we have a way of knowing that the registration was successful. What do we want to do? Well, we'd like to navigate away, right? We'd like to navigate to another page, the profile page. We don't have a profile page. Let's create a profile page, at least a placeholder. Let's see. Let's create a placeholder. We'll say new profile. So this is the profile. There's a template. It's a client.html. And here we have H1. So this is a profile page. We'll leave it like this for now, right? It's just a placeholder that says profile. Let's close that. So what we can do here is that we can navigate there, and we'll use the standard way of navigating from JavaScript. We can just say window, window dot location, and we can change the href, right? So we can literally modify the URL on the bar, right, on the input bar, as if we would have typed it. Okay, we say where do we want to go? We want to go to profile.template.client.html. That's what we want to navigate to. Okay? Oh, sorry. There's an equals. There we go. Make sense? All right, let's try it out. Let's refresh, and let's go to www. We register, and indeed we are navigated to the profile page. Yes? Okay. At this time, what we would like to be able to display here is the content that is specific to the person that is currently logged in. We don't know how to do that just yet. Okay, we'll do that a little later. How do we do that? We need to be able to remember that it's you who just logged in, right? Not someone else. Right? If someone else logs in, then we need to retrieve their information. So we can have a promise. We can receive a successful callback from the server, and then we can navigate to the profile page. So let's use the same technique, but when we log in, right? The same thing we want to be able to do. When we log in, we like to be able to navigate also to the profile page. So let's work on that next.